So in the previous video, we have seen that update functionality works, but the highlighting is not working. So when I click on update for this EMA, let's update this and I don't see the highlight. So let's debug this in this particular session. So let's debug that. So first thing we can check is what we are doing. So here we are conditionally adding this highlight shadow class. So we first need to check if that class is getting added or not. So here I can check for highlight shadow. So here we can see that class is there. This is in the CSS. But in the DOM, we have only one occurrence. That means it's not there in the DOM. So let's verify this by updating here. So I'll update this. I'll change it to drive, update user, and now I will search again. You can see there is only one match. That means this class is not getting added. So in the elements tab also you can check it. So I can highlight this and we only have shadow over here. So let's update this. Click on update and here we can see we don't have that class. That means that class is not getting added. So how do we debug this? So we can check if highlighted ID equal to user.id. So here you can console log what is the highlighted ID and what is user.id. So this executes on the render. So on the reload of this particular page, we can see that. So you can see, so here you can see the highlighted user IDs undefined initially, and we see these IDs. So if you see some of them are 2, 3, and some of these are these crypto random ID that is generated. So the issue is during update. So where update is happening? So update is happening inside the edit user form. So the update functionality is happening here, this code. So let's add debugger here. So to debug, it's always good to add this debugger statement. So just add debugger text and semicolon. Now, whenever this code gets executed, at that time the control will stop. So if you need to make sure that DevTool is open, so right click and inspect here. So this is very important. If DevTool is not open, then the debugger point will not stop there. So let's try to debug here. So I'll click on James and I'll click on date user. Now you can see it's coming here. So what is the ID? You can mouse over. This is the current ID. So our breakpoint is here. So let's check that ID. So we get this ID. So whenever you are at particular breakpoint, all these variables you can directly print in the console. So you have access to that. And what is this user? Let's print that user also. So user ID, if you check 696C, which is the current user ID. So this is the user that is coming after updation, and this is the correct user ID. Now let's continue here. So you can click on this button to continue. Now I want to go inside this update user function. So you can click on this particular icon, step into. So I will go here and I will add breakpoint here. So let's click on this blue so you can directly go inside this particular function. Now you can see for the first user, we have this ID 2. And what ID we are passing? This is string. So this will not match. So let's continue. Now the ID is this 40 and the user ID is 3. So this also does not match. Let's continue. Now this ID is D0. So if you check D0 and ends with 2B. And what we are passing, it starts with 40. So this will also not match. Now this ID is B5 starts with B5 and we are passing 40. So this is also not matching. This starts with 36 and we are passing 40. So this is not matching. Now you can see we are passing 40 ends with 26. So and this also matches with this 4026. So this is a correct match. So now if we click on this next, it will come inside. Now what we are doing, we are spreading out the user property. So what is the user property? This is the user. And then we are spreading out updated user. So what is updated user? This is the updated user. So if I spread out user and spread out updated user, what we get? So we get this particular record with ID of this. So this looks like it's working, but why it's not working? So our original user, if you see original user's ID is 40 ends with 26. And after updating, you can see what is the ID? It's 69 ends with B6. So what is happening? So we are passing a new ID while updating. So if you check here, this user we are creating dynamically. And in this, we are adding this ID, which is random ID. So now this random ID we are spreading out. That means this updated user we are spreading out later. So it overrides the previous all the records. So that means ID is also getting overridden. So as the ID is getting overridden during re-render, that ID is not matching with already available users. So that is the reason it's not getting updated, or we don't see that highlighted section. So how can we fix it? So during update inside the store, we will not update that ID. So I will spread out all the properties and I will keep that ID as it is. So which is the original user ID. So what we are doing in the update user, let me show you again. During update user, we are passing ID. So this ID is the ID that we are passing as a parameter, which should remain same. It should not change. So we are passing this ID. Let's say if it was 6 ID. So instead of this, it was 6. It should remain 6. We should not modify the ID of that particular record. So we should only update these properties, name, email, phone, city. So that is the issue right now. That ID itself gets updated. So during re-render, we don't have that matching ID. So previous ID is already replaced. So that's why during add only this ID is useful. During update, we don't want to update this particular ID. So this ID that we are passing is coming inside the user property. And this ID is the actual original user ID which we are passing to update user. So after spreading out all these properties, we'll spread out that ID. So original ID will remain as it is. So whatever we are passing later will override that. So original ID will remain as it is and the updated ID will not be updated. So here ID, what is this ID? This is the original ID 40. So when I spread out this with ID, now you can see the original remains 4090. So original user is ID is 40 ends with 26 and the final updated also remains as it is, only the other property gets updated. So you should debug like this, so set a breakpoint where you are actually doing that operation. So this ID we were overriding, so now this will remain as it is and the other properties will be updated. So let's save this and I will remove this debugger statement and let's continue. So I will click on this. So I don't want to continue one by one because we got that issue. So I will click on this continue and I will click on this deactivate breakpoint. Now I will click on continue. You can see user is updated successfully. Now we can refresh this page and let's make this enable. So during next time it will be enabled. But now I will close this and refresh. Now we can verify. So let's verify this ODVR. So I will update it to S, update user. Now we can see it correctly updates. So that is getting highlighted. So update was already working, but just the highlighting was not working. Now let's verify this. I will update user. You can see this is also getting highlighted. So the highlight part is working fine. So you can also verify here. So let's go to elements and what was that class that we were adding? Highlight shadow. So let's see it here, highlight shadow. So initially we don't see, we have only one occur. Now let's update this liam. So I will click on update user. Now you can see now we have two users, two records with that matching, and then after 2 seconds that gets deleted. So you don't see that highlighted for after 2 seconds. So this is working fine. So this is how you should debug your code. What functionality you are doing, you can log this, whatever data you are printing, you can log this highlighted ID, user ID if it matches. Otherwise, you can also go directly inside the function which is actually updating. So the update operation happens here. So you can add debugger here itself. So you can debug step by step. So and during each iteration, you can easily find out what was the value at that time. So let me refresh this. And if I add debugger here again, not itself. So if we refresh, make sure this is not deactivated, otherwise if it's activated and if you refresh the page during update it will not stop. So make sure it's always deactivated whenever you are testing. So if I click on update, now it will come here and you can debug each of the line. So the breakpoint is here, so all the previous variables ID, updated ID, you can easily check here what is the value, updated user, all this is coming. Now if you come here at that time you will get the individual user also. So right now if I type user, you can see there is no user because you have not came at that particular position. So you are still at this line. So this code is not executed. So you can click on continue. Now you are here. So user variable is available. So you can print that user variable. So this is how you can easily debug one by one. So if you want to go to one by one line, you can execute this. You can click on this icon. If you want to go inside any function, you can execute this. So you can execute one by one and see if it works. You can also see by mouse hovering. You can also see by logging that variable. So that's how you can easily debug any of the application. So debugging is very important. So whenever you write any code, it does not guarantee that it will always work at the first time itself. So you need to know how to debug. So that's what I wanted to tell. So that's why purposefully I added that bug. So you will know how to debug. One more issue I saw last time is when we click on delete, we don't see question mark here. So we are asking, are you sure you want to delete? So there should be question mark. So inside the dialog, that was a simple fix. So let me add a question mark here. So now you can see that question mark is this way. This is just we missed to add it, but let's fix that in this particular video. So that's it for this video.